Welcome to Unit 10 of OnlinePHPClass.com, and this is actually the final unit with the exception of our bonus unit on files and our wrap-up. So we'll dive right into time and date. Okay, so why would we want to talk about time and date from a PHP perspective? Well, in our code, sometimes we need to use date arithmetic, and it's best to let PHP do the hard work for you, as there are too many edge cases. In other words, there's things like leap year. There's also conditions where if you want to subtract and you're crossing a month boundary or a year boundary or that kind of thing. There's too many edge cases, so let PHP do the hard work for you. We can use dates with PHP to display them on your website. Maybe you just want to have it list what the current date and time is. Maybe you want to provide a future date or time, like this offer will expire in 24 hours, and then actually list you tomorrow's date, or something like that. Maybe you want to create time-based access to a particular website, or maybe you want to track when certain actions happen. Okay, so we showed you how to use the timestamp with MySQL to put the time and date into a MySQL database for login or for historical purposes. I showed you that. However, maybe you want to track more specific time and date information around specific actions on your site. So what you can do is you can use it there as well. You can use dates for anything. In fact, we saw with cookies that the epoch time for Unix epoch time is required to set an expiration time for a cookie. So I use them there. Alright, so we're going to dive right into the functions here. The time function returns the current Unix timestamp. Okay, basically it returns the epoch time, which are the number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. So keep in mind this actually always uses the Unix, or always returns the Unix epoch time. If you're running PHP on Windows, you're still going to get the number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. Okay, time lets you do data arithmetic with an integer, and it's best to store in the databases as an epoch. So some folks have asked me, well, can you store it as a string in a database as an actual date and time? Sure, you can. It's not the best way to do that. It's best to store it as an epoch, as a big int in the MySQL database, and then use conversion functions to format the date the way that you want. There was a site I had made that originally used flat file, and the flat file I put the raw time and date with actual month slash day slash year, and then time with the hour colon, the minute colon, the seconds in two separate fields in a CSV file. That when I converted it to a MySQL database, I converted it literally, and it actually makes the MySQL code a lot more complicated because you have to do a lot of string to date casting and that kind of thing. So it's just a lot more efficient and better to store all dates in a MySQL database as a Unix epoch. So time will get you the current Unix epoch. Date lets you format a local date and time. The full syntax is date returns a string, where the first parameter that you pass it is the format, and the second parameter is optionally the timestamp. Basically, if you don't pass it a timestamp, date will use the current Unix epoch. So an example is date, open paren, quote, lowercase m dash d dash capital Y, quote, comma, time, open paren, close paren, and then close paren for the date, semicolon. Basically, check out php.net/date for the formatting letters to use in format, meaning the lowercase m, lowercase d, capital Y. Check out php.net/date to find out other options. The dashes are going to be literally returned. Okay, so you'll have the month. I believe lowercase m and lowercase d are both return the day, or return the month and the day with leading zeros, and the capital Y is return a 4-digit year. Okay, that's why there's all sorts of variations. There's 12-hour format time, 24-hour format time for the hour. There's the AM and PM. There's all sorts of interesting ways PHP will natively convert it for you. So you can also use capital U as a format. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the same as using time function. I tend to, and I actually put the note here, I prefer to use date U since it keeps the date formatting down to one function to remember. It can be easier to read in code. Sometimes I've seen people get confused between time and date. Kind of sounds funny to say, but I'm referring to the PHP functions, of course. Sometimes people get confused. I typically stick with the date function and then utilize the capital U if I just wanted to get what time would return for me. Then that would basically, it's saying, give me the Unix epoch of the time from the Unix epoch, because by not passing it an epoch time, I'm saying current epoch, and then the U means return the number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. So that's what you're getting. Make time is another cool function. Make time gets the Unix timestamp for a date. So the full syntax is this: it returns an integer, returns the timestamp, and you can optionally pass it hour, minute, second, month, day, year, and whether or not it's daylight savings time. So this is actually, it shows you what PHP date format string each of the individual variables defaults to, and this is the way that you can get an epoch time for a particular date. Now, you might say, well, why would I use make time just to get an epoch time for a particular date? Well, we get creative in using this. Since make time returns an epoch time, and since date formats an epoch date, we use the two together to craft a date and format for date arithmetic. In other words, this example, to get tomorrow's date, tomorrow equals date, and I'm passing it MDY just because that's the format I'm choosing to use, and then make time. So if you remember, the second variable for the date function is the actual epoch time. Well, and make time returns an epoch time, so I'm saying go use make time. Okay, I don't care about, if I go back to make time for a minute, I don't care about hour, minute, or second. Okay, that's 0, 0, 0. I do care about month and day. And I'm just saying, and I don't have to pass it year because make time will default to the current year. So 0, 0, 0, month, day, plus 1 will get tomorrow's date. Okay, date minus 1, get yesterday's date. Get a date 6 months ago, just put the minus 6 in with the month section. You don't need the day section in that case. It'll get you today. So it takes into account leap year and stuff like that. I believe if you put February 29th, I actually don't know if you got, let's say today's February 29th, and if you got last year's date, I don't know if it would return February 28th or March 1st. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure it's documented somewhere though, or you can try it out during your exercise. There is a trick to this. If you're doing begin and end for data arithmetic, it's much easier to have the begin time be hour, minute, seconds, 0, 0, 0, and the end time be hour, minute, seconds of 23, 59, 59. So that your entire start and end include the entire time frame within that day. Okay, just keep that in mind if you're doing any type of date arithmetic for saying determining if let's say you're sending emails automatically or something like that. If you want to determine how many dates have been since your client last got an email, that's one way to utilize it. Anyway, Just a heads up there. Okay, so here are some tips. It's important to use zeros for the time fields when using data arithmetic to do date comparison. Um, Basically, I already covered that. You're putting them there for the hour, minute, seconds. You're also putting them there in the two dates that you're doing if you're comparing dates, so that you actually get the same time to do comparison with. And it's also faster for PHP, even if you did one-time formatted in the result. Okay, I cover that. It's faster than doing actual string dates, because when you get to MySQL, it gets much more complicated. And I ran into problems where a MySQL query was actually running and it was reading the data as a string, and the query didn't return what it was supposed to return as a result. It caused a lot of confusion because it reads logically like it should work. But of course, since MySQL doesn't think that a particular string is a date, it physically does not work. So just keep a heads up on there. I typically only set the time fields when I'm performing arithmetic with time. Okay, that is true. So if I have to check for, like I gave you the example, if I'm doing a begin date time, end date time kind of thing, I'll put the end time of 23:59:59 so that I encapsulate the entire day. Otherwise, you run into an edge case where, what if the particular timestamp you stored is in the 11 o'clock hour and you're subtracting it? Becomes a little interesting. Okay. Alright, date comparison. To compare dates, you compare the epochs just like any other number. Okay, so you can use all the greater than, less than, double equal to, not equal to kind of thing to compare, just like any number. A tip: when storing them in a database, you can use a big N255 field from MySQL. Some folks that do database modeling would say, why are you saying that? Well, mainly because the epoch time is going to continue to grow. It's just always going to grow. So I tend to max it out as a big N255. You probably could get by with it as like a big N30 or something like that. It's probably not going to matter. I just make it a big N255. That's all I do. So just depends on what you want to accomplish. All right, if you have a date that is already formatted, convert it to epoch using maketime, and then do the comparison with the result. You can always convert it back to a format. Okay. So if you have a date string, use maketime, convert it to an epoch, and then compare those. In MySQL, avoid comparing date strings, as you'll need specific MySQL keywords to do that. Stick to epochs all the way, and it'll make your task easier. Okay, I'm not even going to dive into what the specific MySQL keywords are, as you, for the most part, should get into the habit of using epochs. If you have a particular project you're working on where you have no choice but to use MySQL dates that are already formatted, post in a forum, and we'll discuss that. I would prefer that if you did have that scenario, that you would actually just convert them in raw PHP and store them in another table, have some sort of job that did that, and then use PHP to actually read that other table, if you can't actually change the code of what's putting them in the first place. But anyway, that's just a tip. Alright, so the demo. Record in MySQL the last logon date time to the background color changer site. I should say not to use timestamp. Okay, we don't want to use the MySQL timestamp function. We want to use the date functions. And we want to display the last logon date time to the user when he or she logs in. In case you're wondering why we're doing time and date after sessions cookies, this is why. I basically wanted to give you a realistic demo and example for exercise. So I wanted you to have sessions cookies under your belt while going into it. Alright, display the last login date time. So let's do this. That's the one in my XAMPP directory. I don't want to use that one. Alright, so we're going to log in. Now, we have the username. So what we should do is we can get, alright, before I do that, let's go to the browser. It's not under that port. And what we'll do is we will add, I didn't do a user table. I could put it in the user table, probably be the best place to put it. But what I can do, is just create a table that stores the user logins in this particular example. If you have a user table already, you can build off of that, that's fine. We're going to do ID, last login, and username. Just for the purposes of actually building this table, let's just do this. And alright. Hi, PHP class user underscore login. Alright, so oh right, so we haven't even connected to the database yet. Alright, so normally you would have a user table and you would just update the value of last logon for that particular user. Here I'm just going to insert another row, and I'll show you some cool MySQL stuff to do when we retrieve it. Alright, insert into user login. Is that what I called it? User underscore login. And I just have to pass it the epoch and the username. Alright, yeah, of course there's a parser. I didn't finish writing. User underscore login. Last. Is that what it is? No, last login. I saw it before it refreshed. It was just one word. Values. You know, you could use the MySQL now function, but I'm not actually going to do that. We'll stick to PHP values. Last login's an integer, so it does not get a okay. Does not get quotes. And username. Okay. Display the last user time when she logs in. We're going to order by ID descending so that we get the last row. Last login number rows. this should give me what I need. What's nice is there's a UTC value that'll automatically display the date and time. But what I'm actually I'll just do it this way. I think you can get by with hour, minutes, seconds. Pretty sure. We'll check it though. It says this is your first login. Probably could put it on another line. Alright, now if I go back, and I re-enter Tom. Make time expects one parameter to be long. And I gave it a string. Did I now? I did. I meant to use date, not make time. The last I did, that's today, and the time. Time's a little off. Not sure if that's because of the time zone settings or not. But anyway. Alright, and if we go to the MySQL database, I think did we log in what, 3 times? There's 3 with the Unix epoch times. Alright, so that's that. Alright, your exercise is to do the demo. So record in MySQL the last logon date time to the background color, change your site, and display that information to the user when he or she logs in. If you have a user table, you can just experiment with doing a MySQL update and update that particular user table. If you don't have a user table, you can always create one and go from there. Unless you're curious of each instance the user logged in which case, you know, that's one way to do it. You could also store session identifiers and kind of thing, and get really creative if you're troubleshooting issues. But anyway, all right. So the exercise is to do the demo, and as always, you know, post in the forum. I'll see you there, and we're going to cover the bonus unit next on files and uploading, and after that we'll talk about the wrap up. All right. I will see you in the next unit.